probability of a touch, puts and calls. Now, as you can probably guess, probability of a touch just means it's like 2 times delta or 2 times probability of expiring. But as you can probably guess, probability of touching on the call side is much better than the probability of touching on the put side because the market just has always been going up for the last 15 years. So this study is going to be a little bit skewed based on all the stuff that's been happening. But let's see. So the probability of a touch indicates the chance that an options price will reach its strike price before it expires. That means just touch it. It's useful for premium sellers focusing on price movements because what it does is it gives you an indication of what the statistical chances you're going to be challenged. It doesn't mean you're going to lose money, it just means you're going to be challenged. It's generally about twice the probability of the option being in the money. So if there's a 20% of a chance of an option finishing in the money, there's a 40% chance of it touching. I wish I knew this when I was a floor trader because I didn't learn this until Tom Preston taught it to me about 25 years ago. And I never even knew there was such a thing as probability of a touch. When I finally discovered it on the first time, like literally 24 years ago when we were building Thinkorswim, I said, how come I never knew about this before? And he looks at me and he goes, and he just shook his head like, you pedestrian.
You Neanderthal.
Yeah, you Neanderthal, you knuckle dragger. You know, like who doesn't know this? And I swear no floor trader ever knew this. I wish I had known this. We've known that probability of profit often overstates the realized success rate. Is the theoretical pot or probability of a touch similarly overstated? So to find this out, we analyzed 45-day 10 delta puts and 10 delta calls from the following underlines: SPY, Qs, Apple, Amazon, Microsoft. All positions were held to expiration. The probability of a touch on these 10 delta options should be roughly 20%. I mean, why did we pick 10 delta? Well, we could have picked any delta. We just started off with 10. There's no reason. We found that the actual probability of a touch for these puts is much lower than expected. Of course, because all we do is go up. It's only half of the theoretical probability of a touch. 10 delta puts, the probability of a touch should have been 20% of the time it happened. It really only happened 9% of the time in these stocks, over a 10-year period. That's pretty good.
Yes. Yes.
Obviously, this is the whole argument for puts or schmutz, and all you should ever do is sell puts. There's your argument right there.
It's so easy.
It never even went over 9%. Should be 20%. But there's a big but. The actual probability of touch on the call side with the same delta was much higher, almost double what we observed on the put side. The strong bull market in recent years is the primary reason making calls more likely to be breached than puts. However, the average actual pot is still consistent with the theoretical numbers suggested. So this came out to about 19% touched. And as you can see here, SPY's Qs were the biggest, 25%. Apple, Amazon, and Microsoft. Nothing got blown out of the water over 10 years, but this is a very interesting study because, the average was 19%, supposed to be 20. It's pretty damn close.
The numbers work out.
Yeah, making a strong argument for selling puts and calls, of course. But so lastly, we analyzed the win rate of these positions after the strikes were touched. So on the put side, the variation in win rates is slightly higher than on the call side. On the call side, the rates across all underlyings were very similar. Win rates on the put side are significantly higher by 21% compared to the call side due to the strong market and quick rebounds from market bottoms. So the 10 delta puts, they averaged in the success rate, at expiration, 60%, 50%, 60%, pretty much across the board, pretty close to 60% except for Apple. On the call side, it was much lower. No, really, if you looked at this, you'd say, well, why should I ever sell a call?
Exactly the point I was making a moment ago. That's correct.
But you don't always know that the market's only going to go higher. Okay, trust me on
this.
That
is correct. Although it might feel that way.
Yeah, I mean, it definitely does feel that way at times, but it's not the way it works. Puts have a lower actual probability of a touch than calls. The actual probability of touch on the put side is roughly half of the theoretical probability of touch, whereas the actual probability of touch on the call side aligns with the theoretical number. The win rates after the positions were tested is also higher on the put side than the call side, meaning, this is a master of the obvious that puts worked out better than calls in the last decade, but things can change the next